Good leaders maintain steady teams, achieve reasonable growth, and are comfortable in their authority. But great leaders recognize that unparalleled success comes from always seeking to improve. Hello, I'm Chester Elton, and with me is my dear friend and co-author, Adrian Gostick.
Well, thanks, Chess. Yeah, what the world's most influential business people know is that the secret to success is achieving greatness by being coachable. And that means you have to invest in yourself. As always, we hope the time you spend with us will help reduce the stigma of anxiety at work and in your personal life.
And with us today are our dear friends, Scott Osmond and Jacqueline Lane. Scott is the founder and CEO of the 100 Coaches Agency, which he founded with legendary executive coach Marshall Goldsmith in 2016, and which Adrian and I are very proud members, by the way. Jacqueline has been with the 100 Coaches Agency since its founding and is a critical pillar of the community. She comes to the world of executive coaching through previous roles in the energy industry. Scott and Jacqueline, along with Marshall, are co-authors of the new book that comes out this week, Becoming Coachable, Unleashing the Power of Executive Coaching to Transform Your Leadership Life. And I have my signed personal copy with me right here. Hey, Scott and Jacqueline, we are delighted to have you on our podcast.
Thank you for having us.
So great to be here with you guys.
Well, we're thrilled to chat with you. The week of the book launch, we're excited for you. So we'll have Jacqueline start this one. When we first picked up this book, it was pretty exciting because we've all talked about how we can coach, as authors in the 100 Coaches. We talk about how you coach people, but this book is from a different perspective. It's how to be coached, how to be a good receiver of feedback. So, Jacqueline, why is this concept so important for leaders, but also for everyone, really?
Right. Thank you, Adrian. I appreciate that. We wrote this book because we realized that there are lots of books out there talking about how to be a good coach or to use the coaching tool set as a leader, but there really aren't any books out there about how to be on the other side of that equation, which is how to receive coaching. But if we can use the metaphor from the world of sports, a personal trainer is one half of the equation. They'll help hold you accountable, and I'm sure a good personal trainer will help you make some progress. But the other piece of it is you have to be willing to do the work. You have to be willing to invest the time, the effort, to put in the reps. And so this is really a book about that, but we're talking specifically here about leadership and some of the growth that you can unlock in your business, in your personal life. And if you're willing to lean in, willing to be coachable, willing to do the work that's required, we believe that you can unlock truly transformative results.
Excellent. So in the book, Scott, over to you. You talk about this Openness Framework. You talk about it throughout the book. So walk us through the process of becoming coachable and what leaders need to do.
Yeah. So thank you, Chester. Great question. And I have to say the book, the writing of the book and conceiving the book was a journey of discovery for me. Okay. Because as I confess early in the book, I was not always coachable. And what I found was the key to becoming coachable was what we now call the Openness Framework, which was being open to change. And sometimes being open to change, it's insidious. In my case, it kind of manifested itself by, thinking that I had a pretty good grasp of all the answers. So I didn't have to change anything. Things were working pretty well. Other people's comments were interesting to me, but I could handle it myself. And it wasn't until Jacqueline helped me understand that maybe I could be open to change and maybe I could be open to other people's inputs, which I quickly found were really valuable, that I learned the first principle of open to change, and then the other three principles followed quickly thereafter.
Well, I want to push. Jacqueline, let's go back to you because nobody likes change, right? You're trying to get Scott to change, but none of us want to change. Marshall tells the story of, the friend who had a 90-year-old father, I think it was, who wasn't going to change. And he said, look, let daddy be daddy, right? So how can we help people maybe break free of that, or ourselves? How can we break free of that mindset of loving our ruts that we're in, embrace change like Scott got to there?
Absolutely. There's no doubt change is hard. It takes a lot of work. There are some challenges, and none of us can really do this alone. So it's important to have support along the way. But I think an important mindset about change is to say, we get to change. We don't have to change. We get to. We can just reframe it in our own minds as an opportunity for positive growth rather than as something to be feared. And I think just that simple choice.
I had that exact experience. For me, I went from thinking I knew the answers to recognizing that mindset is a self-limiting mindset. And that by being open to change actually is the equivalent of being open to expansion and growth. Because no growth and expansion happens without change. So that's a really transformative, for me anyhow, it was a very transformative way of seeing the coaching process and seeing what it could do for me. And I think that's what we want everybody else to get a chance to see.
Absolutely. I do think that if we look at the big picture, sometimes the mountain looks very hard to climb. So sometimes if we just inspire ourselves by taking that small first step, we start to build some confidence and overcome some of that anxiety that we have in change, make it more of a habit. If you're feeling a little nervous, have the courage to take the first step.
Just get going, eh? Get on the mountain.
Yeah.
Hey, Scott, you've got a wonderful newsletter, by the way. I encourage everybody to subscribe, and you're a beautiful writer. You talk about these coaching moments, and you talked about your puppy coach, which I thought was great in your latest newsletter. So why don't you share with us some of the wisdom that you got from this little 7-pound fur ball, your puppy coach?
Oh yeah, not quite 7 yet. Don't rush him. I got a new puppy. Puppy's now 11 weeks old, about 6 pounds. It's adorable. And if you go to the newsletter, you'll see this great little puppy. But I would say the quickest thing that the puppy did for me is made me a student of feedback, right? Because the puppy, if the puppy wants to go out and I ignore that feedback, the results are swift and unavoidable.
And messy and stinky, yeah.
And messy and stinky, true. But you realize in working, in having a puppy as your coach, that those same principles apply. For example, my puppy coach made it clear that I better be open to change, right? That, the puppy coach was not going to be in my life and life was going to be the same. Like I'm going to be getting up every 3 hours. I have to make sure that there's food with the puppy. I have to be open to change. And so the puppy coach was good with that. The puppy coach also, in our openness framework, number 3 is taking action. Again, feedback is great. And if I say to the puppy coach, like, great, thank you for that feedback on letting me know you have to go out. If I don't take action, again, the consequences are swift and unavoidable. So that's very helpful for me. And it's been a big learning experience. And I expect even the 4th quality of being open to accountability. I don't think the puppy coach is going to let me lose, let me avoid accountability for many years to come.
I love that. And we're going to get to accountability in just a moment. First off, Scott, how do people learn more about the book and about your work? Where would you send them?
Oh, terrific. So I would say, look, to learn more about the book, go to www.becomingcoachable.com. You go to the website. Of course, the book is available on Amazon and I guess every place that you like to find books. And then the agency work, the work we do at the agency, it's agency.100coaches.com. We try to be open and transparent about everything that helps leaders advance and become their highest and best self. That's really the work we do. Arguably the work we do is placing coaches, but really there's an intention behind that. We recognize it's the leaders who do, in effect, do all the work. And it's the leaders who are going to make the changes that are going to make the world a better place. In the part 3 of the book, we talk about human flourishing. And really, I think all of the work, certainly the work that Adrian, you and Chester do, the work that we do, is about helping not just leaders have a better life, but all the people that they love and lead have better lives.
Absolutely. And we've seen the power of, you've brought us clients to work with that we never would have had a chance to interact with. So we appreciate all that you do. And as you mentioned, accountability is maybe the keystone of this whole process. And so, Jacqueline, maybe start us off on this one. Bring accountability into this discussion, personal accountability and also accountability for others. Accountability kind of gets a bad rap as a concept. So how do we make this more of a positive?
Right. The way I always heard accountability when I was working in corporate America, it felt very punitive. It was all about, slapping your hand for not doing something. And so, of course, it's natural that people hear things like performance review or accountability, and they start to shake a little bit. But accountability is really one of those essential ingredients to making any change stick. It's one thing to make a change, but it's so much better to have lasting change. And really, none of us can consistently make a change without that accountability. And so our dear mutual friend and co-author, Marshall Goldsmith, has a wonderful process about this that's outlined in his book, Triggers, as well. It's a process that he calls the daily questions. And the daily questions are a process in which you write the questions, and then you have someone, a friend, an accountability partner, or a coach, call you every single day and ask you your questions. And every question starts with, did I do my best today? Right? So effort does matter. It's not just about whether you accomplished the result or not. It's, did you genuinely try your best? Mm-hmm. And I find that to be such a helpful framing and turns accountability into this very positive process where we recognize and get to track and see over time how we're doing. And so I think that, again, that's a very essential piece of this process. It's the hardest part, certainly for me. I have to remind myself all the time and ask for constant feedback from Scott, from Marshall, from my husband, and ask them, please hold me accountable. I'm really trying to make this change. I'm really trying to do this better. You have permission to tell me where I'm falling short and help me stick with it. Because again, if it's important enough, we do need that support. We're all human.
Yeah.
You make a really interesting point there, Jacqueline, about you give people permission. And that makes it easier to give that feedback, right? And to give that accountability, because I've given you permission to do that. I think that's such an important step. Well, I don't think you ever thought you could talk to me and Adrian without us talking to you a little bit about gratitude.
What?
Thank
you so much, Chester, for bringing that up.
Yeah. What role does gratitude play in becoming coachable? And I've got a two-part question, actually. And not only the gratitude piece, but obviously the podcast is all about anxiety at work. How does having an accountability coach and becoming coachable, reduce your anxiety as well as up your gratitude?
That's a good one.
Go ahead.
All right. Well, I have to say that engaging in this process, gratitude is always the right mindset, right? So when someone gives you feedback or if someone holds you accountable, the right response, in fact, perhaps the only appropriate response, is thank you. Because it's hard to give feedback. It's hard to hold people accountable. And if you respond defensively or combat that or make excuses, then that feedback and that accountability really starts to dry up. And so does the growth. And so, like people say, feedback is really a gift. And so we need to treat it as such and really hold that gratitude, genuine gratitude, to the people that are in our lives. Because especially for those of us who are leaders, if we're leading teams or other people, without those people, we're just a person taking a walk, right? We have to have those followers. And so it's important to be grateful for them at every step of the way. And I do think, too, that engaging in this whole process naturally reduces anxiety. I mean, you want to talk about really understanding where you're at every step of the way. If you're constantly getting feedback and being held accountable, you can't have anxiety and worry about, how am I doing? I wonder what people think. Because people are empowered to tell you how you're doing and what they think. And that's really a freeing thing. It does not have to be a source of anxiety.
Absolutely. The other thing I'd add, our good friend Srikumar Rao he uses a phrase, good or bad, who knows? And I find, sort of looking back in my own life, things that in the moment I thought were bad things turned out to be the best moments in my life. These pivotal moments of change that are difficult in the moment end up with amazing results. And I think that not knowing whether something is good or bad is very liberating. And then you can be grateful for whatever it is that change is or whatever the gift is, and then move on as though it's a gift. And that reduces anxiety, as you said, but really, I think, unleashes a lot of good things.
I get the feeling we're talking about the puppy again.
Could be. He's a cute puppy.
He's a great coach.
Yeah, he's a great coach. He's a good puppy, great coach.
Now, Hey, a lot of people know the name Marshall Goldsmith. They don't know Marshall like we do, but they know that name. And so tell us a little bit, one story, what it was like to work with Marshall on the book.
Oh gosh. You know, so we spent a lot of time with Marshall. A lot of time. I have to say, we spent a lot of time with Marshall. A lot of it walking in malls, because Marshall is emphatic about walking every day, and some of the best time you get with him is walking time. Um, and um, and I would say like my biggest takeaway is Marshall is truly one of the most authentically wise people I know. Um, he has, and I think we both feel this. He has an ability to understand the true human condition, right, without judgment, and be able to very concisely say what is going on and what you can do about it, without the attachment of whether you do it or not. And he often, now you're going to say, like, give me one piece of advice, but he often gives us advice and he's like, look, here's the situation. You can do with what you want. Like, he's like, look, just understand. Well, you can tell a recent thing that I know we're both thinking about. But yeah, he's just authentically generous and wise and non-attached. It's quite an extraordinary thing.
Yeah, it was such a pleasure to collaborate on this project because we're from three different generations. We have lots of different life and work experiences and perspectives on coaching. We've all had the pleasure of being coached and doing coaching ourselves. And so again, we felt like this work was much richer for having this collaboration. And I think we found ourselves so naturally aligned, values
Yeah.
aligned in this, that it was very easy, but it was a lot of rich and meandering conversations, some of which ended up in the book. Even, in chapter 9 is almost verbatim a conversation that we had. And we just left it
Yeah.
broken out by
That
the
we
speaker.
recreate in the
Yeah.
audiobook, which is really fun.
Yeah.
I'd also say I think we're partly values aligned because I can speak for myself, and I think also for Jacqueline, our DNA comes from Marshall's teaching. We are longtime students of Marshall and now collaborators with him, which is what, I mean, talk about gratitude, right? But, I know that a lot of my thinking has been significantly influenced by him over time. And it made the book sort of the manifestation of a lot of his work um, crystallized into becoming coachable, a very easy and fluid process for us.
As we wrap up here, wonderful answers, and always interested in the self-care tactics of successful people like you to keep your anxiety down and keep you being successful. So a couple of practices that you've found personally that help you thrive each day.
Yeah, thanks, Adrian. That's such an important topic to us. We really believe that by learning to engage in the coaching process and being coachable, that it allows us all to unlock what some people would call thriving or flourishing. We think that's so important. You can't just thrive in business and not in your life as well. So managing your own energy and sleep levels, getting outside regularly, taking time. For me, I like to read every day. That's very restorative for me. As a mountain girl from Colorado, I also love to be outside, take a weekend trip once every month or two. And I think everyone has to find those rituals. But I recommend finding space. It's hard to do it. It doesn't happen unless we schedule it. At least that's true in my own life. We have so many more things to do than we can. And so making sure that I have at least 30 minutes a day of truly uninterrupted time where I can just decompress is really important for my continued functioning.
Scott?
We have a moment? Yeah. So I would say I've had uh, I've, I've had some recent back issues, so I'll call it my back coach. Um, has led me to come to understand that maintaining a strong core and back muscles is super important. That actually having a strong core is the essence of reducing a lot of stress and tension, anxiety, etc. And found among other things, never thought I would do this, but stretching every day, and then doing planks every day to maintain the muscles, to have a strong back. I think it's one of those things, almost compound interest. One of those things, like the earlier you start doing it, the better, because back health is really critical. And
Good for you.
for
Yeah,
me, it's
I've started planking as well. I'm up to like 10, 11 seconds. It's going really well.
Very good.
Hey, as we wrap up here, we always love to ask, and we'll give you each one say here. What's one thing you want people to take away from this conversation? We'll start with Jacqueline. We'll end it with Scott. But if you wanted them to remember one thing from this conversation, what might that be?
I think I would encourage people to remember that they are coachable. You know, if there's a moment where you're feeling some resistance, or there's a moment where you wonder if you have the courage to take that first step, remember that you are, that you can do it. You might just inspire yourself by taking that first step.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, listen, I'm so grateful for being on this call with the two of you. And certainly, the biggest takeaway in everything, in our book, your books, is being grateful is really just an enormous thing. And I think being grateful is a doorway to becoming coachable. Because when you're grateful, you're no longer holding on to yourself as much. And you recognize that you can be open to change and accepting of others. And that is the doorway to incredible expansion, which is really what we hope for everybody.
That's excellent. Well, listen, our guests have been Scott Osmond and Jacqueline Lane. Their new book that comes out this week, Becoming Coachable, Unleashing the Power of Executive Coaching to Transform Your Leadership and Life, available at fine bookstores everywhere. It's in Audible, it's in Kindle, it's in the physical books. So make sure you look, anybody can buy one, buy two, and gift one to a friend. Birthdays, anniversaries, Thanksgiving, Christmas, whatever it is, it makes a great gift. Thank you guys so much. You know how much we love you. It's really been a delight to have it on the show. As we leave, we just say, hey, sell 1 million.
Thank you. We love you guys.
you.
Thank you so much.
Such a pleasure.
Well, just another fascinating conversation with a couple of dear friends of ours, as you could, as everybody could tell. We love Scott and Jacqueline. They're great people. They're great business partners for us, but they're also just good, decent people who have an amazing message to share.
Yeah, they really are people that are dedicated to kind of making the world a better place by coaching up one good leader at a time. I had some really interesting takeaways. I love when we always talk about personal care, that they really do take care of themselves. We say it often, put your oxygen mask on first. And isn't it interesting, for Scott, it was taking care of his back, because when his back's in good shape, he's in good shape. And for Jacqueline, it was getting out in nature. Love that. And then, the whole wrap up for Scott with the gratitude being the gateway to being coachable, I thought was really just beautiful. Because when you're grateful for people around you and you've given them permission to coach you up and suggest and give you feedback, everything gets a little better, and that's something to be grateful for.
It does. And overall, I love this idea of becoming coachable, because, you and I, we do a lot of executive coaching, and usually, we're not assigned to somebody who's going, all right, fine. No, they want to be coached. They've chosen this process. So, that's it's not the old world of executive coaching where it was the last step before you're fired, right? But with that said, a lot of these people have been really successful that we coach. Maybe they're about to become the CEO, or they're the CEO, or they're, the smartest person in the room wherever they go. And how often do they accept this sort of self-limiting mindset where it's, I kind of know what I'm doing by now, Chess. I've been doing this 20 years. Yeah, what are my team going to tell me?
Yeah, exactly. I thought the mindset change about I get to change. That mind shift was really important. Not that I have to change, I get to change. And change is part of growth. And, you've got more dogs than I ever will. And so I love the story about his puppy coach. I'll bet that really resonated with you, eh?
Oh my gosh, yeah, you're right. It's instantaneous and talk about accountability. Let's get into that just for a moment. But yeah, you don't take your dog out, you're going to have a mess on the rug. So these questions that Jacqueline brought up, let's dive into those a little bit, because you've used these, I've used these with clients. Did I do my best today? So give us a couple of examples of those and how they work.
Yeah, it is really interesting, because I often do it on my own. Yeah. And when I do it on my own, I'm fairly successful. When I have people checking in with me, I'm much more successful. And she pointed that out, that you've got your accountability coach. I love it. It says, did I do my best to be engaged today? Sometimes we put engagement off to our boss. It's our boss's job to make us engaged. One of my favorite questions is, did I do my best to be happy today? And my dad used to say happiness is a choice, and it took me a long time to figure that out. I go, well, no, I mean, there's a lot of things that impact you that make you happy or unhappy, and he'd say, actually, happiness is a choice. And she makes the point about, did I do my best? Not was I perfect. Did I do my best to be engaged? Did I do my best to set clear and concise goals? Yeah. Did I do my best to make progress towards those goals? I think are really important. I always laughed with Marshall when he first showed this to me. There were the 6 core questions. Yeah. And then he says, let me show you my spreadsheet. And he has like 35 questions. I said, you should add a 36th question. And that is, stop asking yourself so many questions.
I do my best to stop asking myself so many questions. Yeah.
Yeah. And yet, you do build it out. Did I do my best to tell my wife I loved her? Did I do my best to engage with the grandkids? And on and on and on. Those little reminders are really behavior changers.
Well, and I had one client who was a engineering leader, MIT grad, brilliant guy. And I told him about these 6 questions. He says, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And I said, look, I just want you to try it. Reported back a week later, and he says, look, I changed them a little bit. And I said, that's great. And he says, one of them became, did I do my best today to share the load with my wife? And he says, he says, I come home and my wife says, will you empty the dishwasher? Will you take the kids to soccer? And she says, I'm like your boss. And she says, I want us to share the load. And he says, so, and a couple of weeks later, I said, how's that working? He says, that question has become the most powerful thing that I've ever done. He says, I now have this, because I'm asking myself every day, am I sharing the load? And not just helping out at home. And so it's interesting. Yeah.
And he's got an accountability partner, his wife.
Yeah, exactly.
Which makes it, it's so interesting. And I've shared this a couple of times, but my wife Heidi and I have a lovely ritual at the end of the day. What are 3 things you're grateful for? And it just really spurs a conversation about the day and how you enjoyed the day and so on and so on. So lots of great takeaways. Well, great book. We're big fans of both Scott and Jacqueline about becoming coachable. I love their take on it. We need to be open to feedback. We need to be grateful for feedback. We get to change. We get to grow. And speaking about being grateful, who are we grateful for, Adrian?
Well, I am specifically grateful to our producer, Brian Klein, to Christy Lawrence, who helps us find amazing guests and books them. We got Scott and Jacqueline on here in just a couple of days, thanks to her magic. And we're thankful to all of you who listen in and help us make this podcast go and thrive. If you if you like the podcast, please share it, make sure others know about it, and visit The Culture Works, that's thecultureworks.com, for free resources, including the first chapter of that best-selling book, Anxiety at Work.
Absolutely. And we love to speak to audiences, and we do around the world, whether it's in person or virtual. Adrian just got back from Scotland. Did you have haggis? I can't remember. That's not.
I had haggis, and but it's okay. But I love Scotland. People are so friendly, and you're about to go to Dubai, so yeah, we go around the world. And we would love to work with you for your event.
Absolutely. We talk about culture, we talk about leadership, we talk about mental health, and of course, always with that, common thread of gratitude. Well, thanks again for tuning in. I hope you'll share it with your friends. It's been a delight. We never take you for granted. And as always, Adrian, I'll give you the last word.
Well, thanks everybody for joining us today. Until next time, we wish you the best of mental health.